So this is the second video on loci. You need to make sure that you have definitely watched the first video, which goes through how to construct each of the things that you need to know how to do in order to answer these questions. So make sure you've definitely watched the first video before you start watching this one. So the first question here, we've got a shade by shade in the area in the rectangle which is more than 4 centimetres from point A. So this is just to do with one point, and we want all the points that are more than 4 centimetres. So when it's just to do with one point, it's just a nice easy circle. It's obviously 4 centimetres, so we're going to draw a 4 centimetre circle around A. So like that. Obviously I could keep going, but it's going to go outside of the rectangle. Now anywhere inside of the circle is less than 4 centimetres away because it's obviously closer to A. But we want the points that are more than 4 centimetres away, so it'd be anywhere outside of the circle, so this section here. Right, the next one, we want all the points that are less than 5 centimetres from point A. So point A is here. This time it's 5 centimetres, so this time I'm going to have to make it a little bit wider. So opening it out to 5, putting it on A, drawing my circle. Again, anything else now is going to go outside the rectangle anyway. This time I want it to be less than 5, so it needs to be inside of that circle, so it would be this section here. Right, the next one, we've got a tree that needs to be at least 6 metres away from corner A, and we've got a scale of 1 centimetre equals 1 metre, so that's going to be 6 centimetres. It also needs to be within 3 metres away from corner C. So basically we've got a couple of things here that we need to do. So at least 6 from corner A. So I'm going to have to draw a 6 centimetre circle around A. So open my compass up to 6, put it on A, and draw the circle. And it also needs to be within 3 metres away from corner C. So I'm going to open it out to 3, put it on C, like that. Okay, so it needs to be at least 6 metres away from corner A. So if this distance here is 6 metres, or 6 centimetres, depending on whether you're looking at the scale or the actual thing, it needs to be outside of that, but it also needs to be within 3 metres away from corner C. So again, if this is 3 metres, it needs to be within that. So actually it's just going to be this bit here. So that bit there kind of seems a bit pointless, but I suppose we are just checking the fact that it is at least 6 metres. Okay. Obviously if it needs to be more than 3 from C and more than 6 from A, then it would be this section here. So it just depends. You have to just check carefully what part you're trying to shade. Right, so moving on then to slightly more complicated questions. So on this one, Emma wants to plant a tree in the garden. It needs to be 7 metres from the fountain, sorry, less than 7 metres from the fountain and less than 12 metres from the bench. So again, we're going to have to be using a scale. So our scale down here says 1 centimetre represents 2 metres. So the tree must be less than 7 metres from the fountain. So using your scale, that 1 centimetre equals 2 metres. Well, we've got 7 metres. So that's 3.5, isn't it? So we're going to have to do 3.5 centimetres circle around the fountain. So I'm going to rough up my ruler. Here we go. So a 3.5 centimetre circle around the fountain. Right, it also needs to be less than 12 metres from the bench. So that means it's going to be 6 centimetre circle around the bench using the scale. So like that. So it needs to be less than 7, so it needs to be inside of this circle. It also needs to be less than 12, so inside of this circle. So therefore it's going to be this section here. where it's inside of both circles. So that would be the region where she could plant the tree. Right, the next one, Ben is going to plant a tree in the garden. He seems to like planting the trees. He must plant the elm tree at least 4 metres from the oak tree. Show by shading the region where he can plant the tree. So this one's nice and simple. The scale is 1 centimetre represents 1 metre. So if it's 4 metres, it's going to be 4 centimetres. It needs to be at least 4 metres from the oak tree. It's just to do with 1 point. So I just need to do a 4 centimetre circle around the oak tree. And it needs to be at least 4 metres, so it needs to be outside of here because it needs to be more than 4, so it should be that region there. Right, the next one, and we've got 2 more to do, slightly more complicated now, and these 2 tend to be quite popular in the exams. They come up quite a lot, these kind of questions. So we've got 2 schools here, we've got this one and this one. They're going to build a new school which needs to be less than 5 kilometres from Alford, and it also needs to be nearer to Bancroft than to Alford as well. So with these kind of questions, break it down and pick out things that we can do. So let's look at this bit here. So it needs to be less than 5 kilometres from Alford. So our scale is 1 centimetre to 1 kilometre. So I'm going to do a 5 centimetre circle around Alford like that. So 5 centimetres, just like that. And it needs to be less than 5 centimetres. So that means it's going to be inside of this circle. So I know it's going to be inside of here somewhere. Right, the next bit is where it gets a little bit more tricky. So it needs to be nearer to Bancroft than to Alford. So if I want it to be nearer to one than the other, I need to know where the halfway line is, and that is where we do our perpendicular bisector. So we've got 2 points here. It's where you're going to put your compass on one of the points, open it out to more than halfway between them. So if I go like here, so that actually is already on more than halfway, isn't it? So what we could do is use the circle I've already done. So pretend now I've just drawn that again for the perpendicular bisector, and now I'm going to do the same on this one. So that they cross over like that, and when I join them up like this, I now know that that line is halfway between A and B. So if I want it to be nearer to Bancroft than to Alford, it's going to be this side of the line, but it also needs to be less than 5 kilometres from Alford, which was this circle here. So it's going to be to the right of this line, but inside of that circle we drew around Alford. So it would be that section there. So whenever it's talking about being nearer to one point than the other, you have to construct that perpendicular bisector, because that is the halfway line. And then once you know where halfway is, you can go either side depending on which one it needs to be closest to. Right, the final question then is this one here. So again, the questions like this tend to be quite popular in the exams. They come up pretty often. And you can see there's a few things here that we need to do. Quite often in the exam they'll bullet point them as well. And again, just take it step by step. So another person planting a tree, it needs to be at least 5 metres from point C. So let's not worry about the rest for a minute. Let's just do a 5 centimetre circle, because that's our scale, 5 centimetre circle around C. And even if that's all you did in the exam, there's going to be a mark for that. So it's worth doing something and not giving up on the whole thing. So at least 5 centimetres from C. So that is 5 centimetres. We know it's going to be outside of that circle. So that's that bit done. Right, here is the tricky bit. So nearer to AB than to AD. So AB, you've got to think, what is that on this diagram? AB is this line here, isn't it? AD is this line here. So we have got 2 lines. Even if you're not sure what to construct, you need to think, well, where are you going to put your compass? So if you've got 2 lines, where would you put your compass? You'd put it here where the 2 lines meet. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, is put my compass there and just draw what I can. So it's like this. Right, where would you put your compass next? Well, I've got two intersections here and here, so that's where I'm going to put my compass next. So I'm going to put it here and here, and you can see they're crossing down here. So what you have drawn is an angle bisector. I'm going to join it up to point A, and that has cut this angle here in half. So if I want it to be nearer to AB than to AD, I know this line is halfway, that is my angle bisector. So if I want it to be nearer to AB, it's going to be above this line. So at the moment, I know it needs to be outside of this circle here, and also above the line here, but we've got one more thing we need to do. So less than 3 meters from DC. So DC is this line here. So I want it to be within 3 meters of this line. So I'm just going to measure 3 centimeters here, measure 3 centimeters here, and join them up. So I know anywhere here is still less than 3, isn't it? So it's going to be inside of this section as well. So going through this again, just checking it all really carefully. This is going to get you pretty much all the marks apart from the final one of the shading. That's going to get you the final mark. So at least 5 meters from point C, so it needs to be outside of this circle here. We know it needs to be nearer to AB, so we said that's above this line. So we're looking so far at this bit here. And less than 3 meters from DC, so it needs to be under that line. So it is this section here that you would have to shade.